Your relationship should not keep you in a constant state of dysregulation, confusion, or self-abandonment. I want to show you my matcha mug. It's a matcha bowl.
It is a matcha bowl.
And it is huge. I did not realize when I bought it online that it was this huge. It's like a cereal bowl with
But look,
matcha.
it's full.
It's full. I know. And there's a little spout. I'm
Is that
drinking
what
from
you
a
drink?
bowl.
Oh
This
my
is my
God.
first time.
Okay, I love it. I feel like you've been looking for the right matcha bowl for like 10 years.
Yes, I really have. And I love this one. It's beautiful. It is a tad bigger than I would have liked, but apparently this is authentic.
Yeah, I think that those ones are what they make the matcha in. And then the spout is like where they're pouring it out of into something else. But I like your vibe.
This is like a teapot where you pour into other smaller cups.
It's like what they're whisking it in,
Okay.
right? Like traditionally they're
Yeah,
whisking it in there so they have the space for the chussin. I believe
but then
it's
they
called.
don't drink out of this.
I mean, I don't know. I
Some
don't know what
people
people do in their homes, but at least what I've seen, it's what they're making it in and then pouring it out.
well, well, today I am drinking from this ginormous bowl of matcha.
Yeah. From the spout. That's so good. I love it. I love it.
That's hilarious. Okay. Welcome back, everyone, for another episode of True Northing. This is Kristen here.
Allison here.
I'm feeling very aware of the importance of learning the skill of waiting, letting the emotional storm pass before taking action when something happens. When you experience something like a boundary crossing, maybe it's something you've communicated several times and someone broke an agreement they made. The initial response you might have could be anger and feeling a strong impulse to express that anger to the other person, let them know how they've wronged you, that it wasn't okay. But when you're operating from the emotion, you aren't thinking clearly. The rational part of your brain is offline, and you are more likely to cause harm and make a decision that you will later regret. And so the practice is to allow yourself to feel your feelings, find ways to intentionally self-soothe, and wait, if possible, at least 24 hours after emotions have settled. Maybe you've had some rest and you have had adequate time to think through how you would like to respond to the situation before attempting to communicate or make any kind of decision. And this is something that just recently came up for me. So it's feeling really fresh. And it's particularly true if you are a woman in luteal phase when this happens. I feel like there should be a PSA, do not cross a woman in luteal. I listened to a reel forever ago of some woman talking about when we're in luteal, our brain convinces us that nothing is going right. We might feel hopeless. We might feel intense rage if, somebody crosses us or something isn't working out our way, catastrophizing, etc. And so it's best to not make important decisions or have big conversations during that phase. I don't know if you agree with that.
Everything can certainly feel heightened. And even if it is true and the feeling is true and what you need to speak is accurate, everything can just be a little more inflamed or sensitive. Which even we talked about this, like our body can experience more pain during that time. Like I got my bikini waxed or eyebrows waxed when I was in luteal at some point. It was so much more painful. It was so much more sensitive.
Yes, and I have found when I get massages during luteal, it does not feel as pleasurable. It's almost like the touch is dulled or yeah, just I don't know, more sensitive. So it just doesn't feel quite right. That's just my experience during luteal. So yeah, it's so interesting to notice those things. And so, for example, when this I experienced a boundary crossing during luteal, I immediately felt such strong emotion and anger and frustration and thinking about what I wanted to do about this. And initially, when we feel we've been wronged and we're having a big emotional response, we are very focused outwardly on what the other person or people have done and their behaviors and how it's not okay and how could they do this and what we want to communicate to them. And what's so beautiful is I was moving through that myself and really wanted to jump into action, right? I want to send that text and say, "Hey, you crossed my boundary and this is what this means to me." And none of that is bad per se, depending on how you approach it and how you communicate that respectfully. But I was feeling all of this and was able to remind myself to not take action from an emotional place, but wait. This is especially true for me, but I think it's important for most people to let the emotions settle before taking any kind of action, even if the emotion is positive, even if you're feeling ecstatic and really excited about something and you're ready, like, let's go do the thing. It can be so helpful to let the emotion come down or up, depending on the emotion, and allow yourself to come more to homeostasis or to a calm center before taking the action. And in this case, when I was able to ride the wave, I was able to, just take some breaths, kind of put it on the shelf, get out of the problem solving part of me that wanted to jump into action. I did some journaling, I let myself go to sleep, and I finally was able to come to the question that I try to always ask myself, which is, okay, I know what everybody else did wrong, but what is the piece here for me? What is the invitation here for me? What is my part? What is my responsibility? And that was so helpful. And the urgency to lash out or react and tell everybody else involved what they needed to do differently dissipated so much. I still will, from a really calm, conscious place, come back and, reinstate boundaries or express what I need to express. But it doesn't feel so urgent. It doesn't feel so volatile. And I feel so much more clear and also grounded because I can see how I participated in creating this situation. And for my particular situation, it went from my wounding, which says I can't rely on anybody, I can't trust the people around me. It went from that to I can trust others, but I need to use discernment and be very intentional about who I give access to. Does that make sense?
That makes so much sense, and it sounds such like a healthy development. Like, it doesn't go from, "I can't trust anybody, I have to always rely on myself," to then forgetting that part that kept you safe for so long and completely, not having judgment or discernment and, giving trust where trust hasn't been earned. Instead, it says there are some places I can trust. There are some places that don't have access to that inner part of me. And clarifying what those things are. How do I know when I can trust? And maybe I trust somebody and sometimes they mess up. What are the other areas that I trust them? Can we build trust? I think that's so healthy. What I also love about what you shared about like pausing before reacting or responding wasn't that you were not responding because you were trying to make your feelings go away. You weren't saying, okay, I'm not going to talk because this isn't valid. It's not important. My emotions don't have anything to say here, or I just, need to get rid of this feeling. So I'm not going to respond. What you did instead is that you became really present with what you were feeling. You journaled, you breathed through it, you allowed yourself the full experience of what came up for you to invite it closer in, to learn more about it, to understand it more deeply, learn about what was there for you. How did you participate? What were you being invited to learn? And it doesn't mean that the truth of what you experienced was invalid. It means that now you have a more clarified way to know for yourself what came up and then be able to communicate that. And that is so powerful. And that's a gift to ourselves to be able to do that. Sometimes we think that the initial response is what is sticking up for us. It's like, I need to let them know straight away. And I need to set this boundary and I need to close myself off and I need to, whatever it is, to make this not happen again. But what I'm seeing here is you gave yourself a greater gift of clarity, discernment, being with, and understanding more deeply before you now go and speak truth. And that is so helpful for you and for your relationships, for all of us and all of our relationships to be able to learn that, to be able to learn those skills.
The
Yeah.
talking ourselves out of what we're feeling is another form of taking action. When we are having an emotional experience, I'm glad you brought that up because it can be outward where we are wanting to reach out, we are wanting to express to the other person what we're feeling. It can also happen inwardly where our mind is working really hard to solve the problem right away, to, as you were saying, invalidate what we're feeling or make up stories about why this happened or why we should be feeling this way, why we shouldn't be feeling. It's kind of like case building and trying to organize and make sense of it all. And that is also that impulse of like solving this problem right now. It's this urgency to kind of make it go away, which is a really great signal that you are dysregulated. That sympathetic response, fight or flight, drives us to take action. It wants us to take action right away. So, noticing when that's happening, whether it's happening inwardly or outwardly, and just allowing yourself to feel what you're feeling without judging it, without needing to organize it or make sense of it or turn it into some kind of decision or some kind of action does benefit everyone in the situation and particularly yourself.
I love that. When I've had big feelings and moments like this, more recently, I've been putting my hand on my heart and I just say, "Ugh, it makes so much sense that you feel this way." And I really validate myself. Um, I try to be present with whatever I'm feeling and just like give myself that love and nurturance that I maybe was feeling lacking or felt was threatened. And it's such an act of self-love to give ourselves that moment of attunement when something comes up. I also love what you said. It's not just the hard feelings. It's the positive feelings as well, right? We can make impulsive decisions when we're in love or when something's going really well. Like, oh yeah, I've just witnessed somebody make a really awful decision when it seemed like everything was fine and dandy and emotions were really elevated. They missed some really key pieces of discernment within that. And so, yeah, tracking, oh, am I really, feeling extra good or extra bad right now? And how can I pause and just see the full picture, be present with myself in the situation before then making a decision or having a response? And it could be the same response you would have had initially, but at least you're able to come into a state of more coherence.
I love being able to notice the theme that shows up in challenging situations for us. So we all have I call them core wounds or core stories about our life, our experiences, our relationship to other people. And it usually starts very young in childhood. An example is what I had just mentioned before of I can't rely on other people. So maybe that's a core theme in my life based on my wounding. So, whatever your core wounds are from childhood, such as I cannot rely on other people, that is going to continue to show up throughout your life in all kinds of ways. The situations might look very different, but the feeling will be very similar. And as we grow and experience healing around those wounds, the situations that present can become harder to identify that it's connected to the wound. Even in this situation that I just recently encountered, once I was able to, from a really regulated place, ask myself, okay, what is here for me? And I was able to also kind of sit with, well, what is this bringing up for me? And it was bringing up for me this flavor of my core wound of, okay, this is reinforcing, this is reaffirming or kind of rewounding me. It's reaffirming that I can't rely on others. But because of all the growing and healing I have experienced, and because I just have this way of approaching challenges that show up in my life, I was able to notice that. And then it brought this lightness to the situation for me of like, oh, okay, this is why this is presenting. It's going to continue presenting until it's fully resolved. And for a lot of us, it's never fully resolved. We will spend our life always experiencing situations that will remind us of that feeling, attracting, even creating those situations unconsciously because it's a match for our lens, our filter, how we believe life goes for us. So it was interesting for me to notice that piece was in the situation and I could kind of smile about it and just go, okay, there's a little bit more here for me to be with. And then I could get to that invitation and how do I want to approach this differently? Or what was my piece? And bringing in that more conscious, empowered approach that included responsibility for myself and for the other.
So curious of how you discovered and related to what your piece was in a moment that you felt like your boundary was crossed or it was crossed, then what your process of like distilling your accountability and also what you said of like how you may have created the situation or participated in the situation. And aside from that, a note on where you were saying like when we can feel our inner wounds activated in our life in different situations, it becomes our lens of which we see behaviors or where we see experiences, even if it's not that. And so the interesting thing as well is when we start to heal, or maybe we've fully healed a part or we're still healing apart. Like those same situations can occur, but we relate to them differently. So it's not always that those situations aren't going to occur. It's that it doesn't knock us down in the same way. It doesn't affect our self worth in the same way. Maybe we're able to recover a bit quicker. Like instead of it having a lasting impact on us and what it means about us, maybe instead we take those 24 hours and the time span shortens of how long it takes for us to understand more and recover from what happened. And so maybe it's yeah, how long it takes, and then maybe sometimes I don't think we'll ever be fully healed of everything, but sometimes we've become so far from the original wound. We've become so integrated, so understanding of ourselves in this situation that it just doesn't press on the same buttons as it did. We're like, oh, look at that. Look at how I used to feel about myself when something like that happened. Oh, look at how I used to think. Look at how that would shape my day. So it becomes a great tool of insight for us when we have the wound. And I love how you were able to love yourself through it. Like, wow, this is here. It's another flavor of it. Versus, oh no, it's still here. It's such a different way to approach. So yes, would love to hear about how you came to understanding what your piece was, the accountability and the participation, what that looked like, what that sounded like.
I do love what you said about relating to the situations in a different way as you've really worked through the original wounds. I also like to remind people that your current state and how resourced you are feeling in that moment is going to influence your ability to respond to the situation in a different way. The more stressed we are, the more tired we are, the more we have on our plate, the more dysregulated we are, the more quickly we fall back into old patterns because those original patterns that have been reinforced and reinforced for years and years create these grooves in our brain, these neural pathways, these patterns that become so familiar that it requires so little energy for the brain to take that path. And so when energy is sparse, when we are tapped out, that's just what happens. We tend to react in that very familiar way.
Hmm. Okay, so your accountability and responsibility was, hey, this really brought up something older for me. That's that is brought up through this situation, but it also is stronger because of this story and wound that I have.
I was able to recognize that the wounding was influencing and magnifying the emotion I was experiencing and how I wanted to respond to the situation. And so I could recognize that as very emotional, bigger than it needed to be to help myself come down, to walk myself off the ledge. What I was able to come to was that there was growth for me in this situation because I have done so much healing around understanding myself, understanding others, being able to trust and rely on others, being able to express myself. That's all been a really important part of my healing and growth. I had kind of swung to this other side of the spectrum that's said, I'm going to express myself really freely and openly and comfortably with whoever. It was almost like I had no filter. And because of that, I had shared too much with people who couldn't hold it. So that was my responsibility piece. And I recognized that I was sharing information because I wanted to be able to, and I trusted that it was okay to, without recognizing and discerning who I was sharing it with and their capacity to hold it in the way that I wanted it held.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
So the wounding would say, "Oh crap, here we go again. This is an example where, look, I can't trust people." The truth is that I came to is that I can trust people, but I have to decide intentionally who I can trust and with what.
So that was your reflection on your wounding and also your growth.
Yes.
And that's where you were able to take responsibility and accountability, right? We like hand over a part of ourselves to somebody else and be like, care for it in the way that I want you to, without them even knowing what that is, without there being an agreement with, yeah, so many
Yes.
things that haven't been put in place first. And then we get upset when that doesn't happen. And sometimes it could be that we were unfairly putting something on somebody that they never asked to hold, they didn't agree to hold, they were never capable enough. And so it is finding those relationships and that people or having those conversations like, hey, what do you think about this? And then a responsible person can be self aware and say yes or no. Yes, that's something that I can, keep secret or sacred or no, I always share with everybody. Sorry. you know, whatever it is. Um and then some people you learn they don't have that kind of ability to know themselves that deeply. And so then you make choices accordingly. And there are times that just really innocently we want to trust people and then get hurt in the meantime, and it's a learning experience for all of us. This actually reminds me quite a bit of what we wanted to touch on today, the difference between a challenging relationship and a dysfunctional one. Is it growth or is it dysfunction? And so what I'm hearing from your real lived example was this experience where you were able to take a challenging moment and experience growth from it, which sounds like it made you feel more connected to yourself. It made you feel maybe more aware. It gave you a sense of like development of more like understanding and capacity. Like you didn't have to shrink yourself in the situation, you ended up growing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's thumbs up, healthy, good growth, right? There's also relationships and experiences where challenges are not healthy growth opportunities. They're actually more signs of dysfunction. And what can happen is that somebody might initially think that the relationship is helping to grow them. But what it really is over time is breaking them down. So we want to talk about the difference between when it's growth, when it's breaking you down and dysfunctional, or possibly when it contains a little bit of both.
Relationships take work, but there's a difference between hard and unhealthy. Not every day will be easy, and not every day should feel hard. Hard moments, yes. Challenges that push you to your edge together, yes. But navigating and persevering through hard things together is not the same as staying disconnected, abandoning yourself, and carrying the weight of the relationship alone. Your relationship should not keep you in a constant state of dysregulation, confusion, or self abandonment. I heard recently, and I can't remember where, but somebody said true adult love is easy. If it is making your life harder, it's trauma bonding. And what it made me think about is when you are choosing a partner in your 20s or early adulthood, like a lot of us do, you are probably choosing from your wounding. You are still young in your adult development. Most people have not done a lot of digging into their childhood, a ton of personal growth and healing their core wounds. We're just developing our self-awareness. We're starting to read the books. We're starting that journey. And so when we are choosing a partner during that phase of life, we're choosing someone who is going to match our wounding. And that journey of trying to sustain a relationship with someone who is really stuck in their wounding, maybe unconscious about their wounding, and has very low capacity, which was a match for you for probably a number of reasons at that stage of your life when you chose them, that journey could go differently depending on who you are and who you chose. If from that point forward, you are both choosing to grow and you're both have enough capacity and enough desire to sustain the relationship, you are going to embark on that personal growth and healing journey together, challenging each other, triggering each other's wounds, and figuring out what to do with that together. Or the person you chose is not going to be open to that. And if that happens, you might be going along, growing and developing in your capacity, growing beyond your wounding, expanding your capacity for joy and love and life and relationship. And that gap between you is going to continue to grow wider and wider and become more painful. When you choose a partner later in adulthood, it should feel easy. When you are in a state of high capacity, emotional maturity, you've done a lot of growing and learning and developing and healing, you're going to choose someone who's a match for that. And when you're both showing up for the relationship with some skills, some resources, and with intention, the relationship, like any relationship, will have edges and challenges, but largely there will be ease and you will be able to navigate those situations together. Would love to hear your thoughts.
I love the word ease there. For some reason, ease and easy feel different. They land differently to me. And so, with ease means that there are skills that have been developed that you can apply because you've practiced them, you've integrated them, you've assimilated them. That doesn't mean that discomfort, challenge, differences don't arise. It means that you can meet them with the tools that you've learned and cultivated in practice, which should have some kind of ease, is what I'm imagining, what you're communicating. The difference between a relationship that both people are available for growth in a relationship that has dysfunction or is dysfunctional is the foundation. Is it a relationship with a foundation that has accountability, that has repair, that has vulnerability, that has the ability to acknowledge and develop oneself and recognize that the other one the other person is doing the same thing. If it doesn't have a healing foundation, there's going to be instability, disrespect, confusion, immaturity, neglect, blame, harm. So, what is the foundation? Is the foundation growth and healing, or is the foundation dysfunction? And are both people saying yes to that? I'm really curious in your course, in your relationship roadmap course, you say that conflict can be a sign of compatibility. And I think that that's like a core thing that we can look at here, because I'm wondering how you would view that now with the idea that relationships should be easy, like healthy relationships should be easy. And um yeah, just curious where that lands now, because we could really break down conflict and kind of be like, okay, well, this conflict is good, this conflict is bad. This is the kind of conflict that we're talking about and this one not. But how do you view conflict within easy?
Relationships are meant to illuminate what is unhealed in us. They are designed to show us what needs attention, to show us what is unresolved within us. So the level of conflict is going to depend on the level of wounding that lives within each person. So, conflict being a sign of compatibility means you have successfully chosen someone, your unconscious has chosen someone who has the potential to help you grow and heal immensely, grow and heal back into your truest, most alive, authentic self. The key word there, from my perspective, is potential. Not every partner is going to be able to overcome their limitations and their wounding to be able to meet the opportunity that the relationship is providing.
I think a core distinction here is not that there is conflict, it's how conflict is managed. Some conflict can expand your awareness, it can expand your capacity. That's good conflict. Other conflict drains your life force, it disconnects you to yourself and others. Know the difference. A healing relationship may reveal your wounds, but a dysfunctional relationship keeps them open and keeps wounding them. Thinking of where a relationship can be both growth oriented and dysfunctional is when you are in the relationship and you are maybe aware of your wounds that are coming up, and you are doing the self reflection and work to understand them, and you're growing in your ability, in your capacity, but you're also in a relationship with somebody not doing the same. And it's dysfunctional and harmful. So both can exist at the same time.
And what often happens with someone who is very stuck in their wounding and has very low emotional capacity is that they typically are not open to the growing and healing together, which does not mean you shouldn't try. It does not mean don't even bother inviting them, right? You still, if you're committed to the relationship, you still show up for your part. You do your own work to grow your capacity. you find ways of inviting your partner into theirs as well for the health of the relationship.
Would say that a partner that's not willing to do their own self reflection and growth is going to ask the person who is doing it to take on theirs as well. Just be more understanding, just be more loving, be more forgiving, be more compassionate. Um, Keep compromising.
Right. Give me access to you and the relationship without requiring me to have any accountability.
Mhm. That's dysfunctional. Healthy growth costs you your false self. Dysfunctional growth costs you your true self. Are you having to minimize who you are? Are you having to tolerate things that are making you self abandon? That's not growth. That's not building capacity. That's minimizing who you are.
There's the distinction.
I see so many women, especially, caught up wondering, is this healthy? I'm being challenged. It's good for me to grow. I want to see my own stuff. And they're really committed to that, but it can become almost over spiritualized. Like women and men do this too. But I think the tendency is more towards women doing this of just taking on more and more and more. Oh, I need to, heal myself, grow myself. But they get stuck in a cycle of unhealthy relating with somebody who is not on the same page as them. And so a lot of a lot of people are trying to know the difference. How do I know when it's for my growth? And how do I know if I'm being injured? How do I know that this isn't working towards something, but it's actually collapsing what is healthy and what is good?
Have you done the work to figure out what growth is being invited for you? And have you stepped into that? And has anything shifted?
Yeah. And does your relationship have a healing foundation? And that what you do with that, I mean, step one is just recognizing, is this relationship oriented towards growth or dysfunction? And now what? Am I oriented towards growth or dysfunction? Am I growing or am I collapsing? What about my partner? What are they doing? How are we relating to each other? So, like, just getting a feel. Where are you? What is happening? Yeah. Where are you taking responsibility for yourself? Where are you maybe taking on more than you should and knowing the difference? Such an important, such an important distinction and place to start. I'd love to hear any questions, comments. Let us know. Love to hear from you all.
And if you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, we would be so grateful if you would hit that subscribe button and share it with somebody who it might resonate with. We appreciate you for tuning in, and we will see you next week.